Yo yo, hello everyone, and welcome back to the stream. Um, so as usual, a recap of what we did last time. So we've been working up with this Petindr kata from Jan Sabbe, where we are making an application, a web application, where you can match with pets, read their info, like and dislike them, and then also chat with them. This chatting window, or let's say a screen, is for this moment a different Elm file. So we've got a chat.elm file, which is a separate page. We've got a home.elm file, which is also a separate page. And then we've got a pets.elm file containing a bunch of interesting stuff about our pets that we are listing. What we did last time was more or less provide dynamic behavior to all of this stuff. For example, when you click on the I button, the overlay pops up showing the profile text of the pet that's being shown. Then when you like, and it's indeed a match, then we should show this overlay. And then also, for example, typing in the chat box would happen over WebSockets. So we would get dynamically and then random responses from our chickens, for example. So that's that. So then before we wanted to do this part here, routing between home and chat. So that was last week. I did a brief intermezzo on testing, where we ran into some trouble while testing div or HTML div renders. Why was that? Because we had to use a special assertion library that would be able to provide a specific output for when tests were failing. Otherwise, we would just get property undefined, for example, in JavaScript as output. But now we've got running tests as well, or like a framework where we can actually run tests. So that we don't need to be shy while experimenting to actually also write tests for whatever that we're doing. So today we are going to try and do this, like provide routing between home and chat. Now I've done some reading. I gotta be honest, I haven't done extensive reading just yet, but I came across this very interesting blog post by Richard Feldman, who explains in detail how he wrote this single page application example, like for a real world example app. So this is a thing, it's got multiple implementations, and then Richard decided to write one in Elm as well. Now we won't be going through the code that much, but we might be stealing some ideas from this to help us advance, let's say, towards the routing goal. So that's what we'll be using this block for. Then this is also something pretty interesting. The UrlParser, which is stuff that I think we're gonna need. I'm not that sure. But this module allows you to parse the actual URL in your web browser to do dynamic behavior based on whatever was input. So for example, here, whenever the URL happens to be blog/42, you can use a URL parser to parse behind the hash and you basically identify what the URL looks like, or the way it's built, and it exports or it outputs a maybe type with then nothing, or the actual value that was behind the slash in this case. So we might be using this to, for example, if our home application or if our chat application happens to parse to or point, sorry, to, for example, what was it again, like chat dot or slash pet, and then with an ID of 1, we could then parse this URL and go fetch the pet with ID 1, and then set up a WebSocket to pet with ID 1 over here. So that's the plan. And then navigating to that URL, we'll try to do from inside this match overlay div here, where when you actually click, and that's the stuff we still need to implement then, is this send message button. So this should point us to this separate application. So where do I want to keep that? Keep that info maybe somewhere in here. Like to-do markdown file maybe. So what do we want to do for routing? We want to, well, this is basically all experimentation, right? So let's experiment. And first we want to do is make sure our chat page can parse a given pet ID and work dynamically with that using UrlParser. I think that's already a good goal for today. So we can do that. Excellent. Now, I also noticed that Richard also uses the URL parser in his real world application. So we might find some other examples of how to use it in that application itself as well. But there's also, I think there's plenty of documentation for it here. Yeah, so let's figure it out ourselves. Cool. So today we'll be working in this file most of the time. So now I think this is something we haven't done, or you haven't seen me do yet. So this is how you add a dependency on a different module. So you want to save this, and then I think it's like elm package install or something. So now, since the URL parser module itself has some dependencies, for example, the DOM and navigation 2.1, it comes to ask me, hey, do you want to also install these dependencies? And I'm like, yeah, sure. There you go. So don't mind this. This is just weird output in this terminal in Studio Code. Yep, so that should be great. Now we should also be able to import URL parser, this thing, exposing. Maybe like check the example. I think there was string involved. So this is interesting. It seems like an operator. Then S. I have yet to find out what that means. We're gonna also parse the pet ID as an int, and then maybe also parse hash. So maybe we don't even need string for now. Okie dokie. Of course, Elm is gonna complain why you're not using this. Please remove the import. But I'm going to Elm, just trust me in this. So this is where we start our main program. It kicks off the initial rendering, etc., and also our initial model. Now what we do is we fetch our model based on this pets import. Now what we could do is, I'm not really sure. Let's check if we could go like backend and then I think server.js or something. And this is gonna return us with, yeah, pet IDs as well. This is indeed also returning all of the pets. We could ask for just the pet with one ID. And I think we did that already in home somewhere. So instead of our initial model being just cricket, we need to properly fetch this, the pet that we're talking to, through first calling a web service with the ID that we just that we parse from the URL. So so what do we need to do? Fill or initialize model using web service. I believe it was API pets, and then pet ID. So that's that, where pet ID matches the ID that got parsed from the URL. Just like that. So let's try and get that stuff working first. All right. Cool. I think from there we're pretty much golden, actually. Yeah? Because everywhere else in our application, or in this application, we are using our model, our local model, to handle dynamic behavior. So eventually there also will be a problem with our conversation being constantly refreshed whenever we reach that, or when we refresh the website, but that's a problem for later. Okay, so I did all of the import stuff. Now let's go like this, where we want to parse a hash. Is it a hash? Because it all has like this hashtag stuff. Not really sure. I'm just reading a bit. So this is also for a single page application, so hence the hashtag stuff or the hash bang or something. Shouldn't be a hash bang because it's like just a hash. From the URL, maybe like it should give a proper example. G. Oh, I forget. I think it's 8,000. Unsure. It's gonna be this. Too bad. So chat and then ID should load princess because and I think that thing is 3,000 API/pets 1 returns princess. There we go. Okie dokie. So let's check out how we should or where the parsing actually happens and how do you wire it into your application? Like when does it start? Maybe we need to look at this as well. Elm-lang navigation. Bam. Okay. Ah. Right. So to have our so that was the answer basically to where does the URL parsing happen? Well, navigation itself comes with its separate program that also has an initialization step where you pass along a function that takes a location and returns a model and a message, and then from there the rest of your application is kickstarted. So where we usually have our init being just do initial model do command none. Now we want a function that basically returns this stuff based on the location. So that's where this thing comes in. So here, this is a bit unclear. So this program right here is an actual HTML program. But now we want to use the navigations program. So since we changed Elm package.json to also include the parser, the URL parser, but that thing should also come with the navigation module, I think, unless we also need to make that more explicit. So I think we can go like navigation. Yeah. And then this is also exposing a program. Maybe I can go like this as nav or something. And then instead of HTML, we're going to create nav, where our init now can take in something that has a location, and I think our parser returns that thing. Location. Almost everyone will want to use URL parsing with this to turn a location into something more useful. Ah, okay. That's cool. Let me gather these a bit. So this thing should have, yeah, so that's exactly that type. So this is a location. Excellent. Parse URL or something. Yeah. And then our parse URL is a function that takes a location and outputs a command with a message. Sorry, model with a command. Stuff seems to be compiling, so that's cool. I don't think this has done anything at all, actually. Let me fire up our backend in the background. Yep. All right, API listening on port 3000. And then we can start an Elm reactor right here, which I hope still is pointing to chat. Yes, it is. Okay, cool. All right. Sorry. So if you go to localhost 8K, here's our index. Oop. So I do think we need to be explicit about using this dependency then. That's okay, right? So it's just right here in Elm lang. So let's add it to our package.json from Elm as well. And then what I should be doing is looking up which was the actual latest version or the earlier version. Sorry. And now install it again. Seems legit. I think this is that same problem that we were having last time when we were screwing around with our index.html again. But I forget what we did to fix that stuff. If anyone can remember, please put it in the chat and help me out. Maybe just changing it or something. Maybe just changing this. Oh, now we actually are also getting this. Yeah, indeed. So maybe that was a problem all in the end. Wait, what? Is expecting the argument to be a function that takes in a nav location, which outputs a record with an init, a subscription, an update, and a view, where the init is something that takes in a nav location and outputs a model with a command message. Let's check it out again. Indeed. Oh, and this outputs a program again. Oh yeah, right. So this should take a function that to output messages whenever the location has changed. URL listener or something. Changed handler. Forgive my stupid naming. And then this thing is a function that takes a nav location and outputs a, what was the message? I don't remember if, yeah, I think this is fine. I forget how you do anonymous functions. Yeah, there you go. All right, so now it doesn't seem to be complaining anymore, and maybe this thing is working. Sort of. Yep, excellent. So now the only thing that we did was basically change our old HTML program into a nav or navigation program, which requires you to pass along a handler function that outputs messages whenever the URL was changed. So I think, yeah, like typically it's gonna be like this, right? Because you want to pass along a message that has the location so that you then can react or like do this stuff. But let's not deal with that just for now. What we then also did was since we are using this navigations program, our init type has changed from just returning an initial model or a tuple with a model and a command into a function that takes a location and then outputs our initial model with a command. And what we've just done for our implementation is basically just return our the thing that we had there in the first place for the first time. Just output that as well, always. So now nothing's really changed. What we've done only is change the program runtime, basically. So now that we so that we are able to deal with URL changes or parsing the URL in the browser's URL bar. Cool. So now that we've got this, let's try to update our initial model based on this parsing function that we're gonna write that is gonna take this location and then we'll transform it into our initial model as well. So what we could do, yeah, so maybe what we could do is already have an initial model and then go like update with location. So this thing should have an initial model and a location. And then our update with location function is something that takes in, oh, sorry. There doesn't need to be any braces, right? Is something that takes in a model. It also takes in a location. And it's gonna output a model once again, because we want to sort of change our model based on the location itself. So what we could do for now is just return our model, and that should change absolutely nothing. Oh, need to prefix that with this. Okay. So now it should also just keep on working. Yep. But now what we want to do is like use this to check what our URL parsing would do. And what we could do is we want to maybe update, I don't know, the pet, I guess, or the pet's ID or whatever. Or maybe just add something silly to it, like pet ID. And that's an integer. So now we need to change all of the things, because we take a pet and then maybe like 999. Pet ID equals something that's able to parse. This should be called parser, like get pet ID from location, maybe. let's identify this ID from location and let in. Yep, that should do it. And then our get pet ID from location is gonna take in a location and is gonna output an integer. And now we can actually use our URL parsing library. So this thing. Oh, right. So this is gonna probably end up being a maybe integer. So it's not gonna be blog, but maybe like chat, right? And then this is, I am exposing just S though. So why, right, once again, probably this thing. HTML also has an S. And this is returning a maybe instead of an int, yeah. So I don't think we've explained this already, or we've explained this yet. So maybe is, if you're familiar with Java's optional, it's sort of like that. It's just a wrapper around some value that might or might not exist. This is pretty cool in Elm because you can express the fact that something exists or might not exist right in there. And it's got this with default function that's able to, in this case, hang on. I would really just like to get here. So for example, this is a use case, right? So you can say, I want to have a with the default being 100, and it gets passed along a maybe that is in fact just a number, just 42 in this case, and it will just output 42. So the value of so it will unwrap the maybe basically. When you pass along nothing, then it will return the default value. So that's the thing that we're going for. So maybe our default can be 999 or something that doesn't really make sense. So I'm just gonna do this to make stuff easier, right? And what we want to do is we want to apply the result of this onto this with default setup, so that whenever we fail to parse something out of our URL, we get returned 999. So what we also could have done is just have our model's pet ID be a maybe of an int, so that we're unsure what the actual pet ID is, and then only do something with it when something like it contains an integer. So that would be smarter in any case, but we want to just see quick results, and this should do the trick, I think. There is like an initial model right here. That I don't want to use 999 because we already have our with default set up to do that, and I want to make sure that it actually does this stuff. So I know for now that it doesn't make sense to pass along initial model, that we should really be creating our initial model from this function right here. But let's just do it one step at a time. So everything seems to be compiling, which means that if I just refresh and we can explore this history, our pet ID was turned into 999. So from the get-go. Now what would happen if we'll go like this with an actual ID? Oh, then it turns into 1 indeed. I think the URL parsing is working like a charm. Oh, and then Amazing Turtle X asks the question, Elm, what the hell is this? Well, Amazing Turtle. Elm happens to be a delightful functional programming language. You might want to read up on either the actual tutorial. So if you're into functional programming languages, or you just want to learn one, I highly advise Elm. It's got this great guide that you should probably follow to get started with it, and then maybe rewatch all of the episodes on this channel. So thanks for your interest nonetheless, and for asking the question. Cheers. All right, so we already got the URL parsed and into our model. Now we don't want to put this thing in our model at first. Because what we really want to do is just do a web service call and then fill in our model or pet basically based on the return value. Luckily for us, we've already done such a thing in home, or at least that's what I think that we already did. Yep, here you go, I think. Now well, I don't think we actually did that until now, because what we've done before from web service calls was only done hey, try to do matchmaking based on the pet ID. See, now I'm confused because I thought that this thing, I don't know, is indeed only gonna return a match or no match. Oh yeah, then we can't even return. Okay, so where is our to do? So the work dynamically with that is maybe a next step then. So this is done. Because we're able to parse URLs and use that in our code. So that was fairly easy. And now with the fetched or the parsed pet ID, fetch the pet info and use that to initialize our model with. I think you can also write it like this. Oh boy. Okay. So this thing is done. Then with the parsed pet ID, fetch the pet info. But to do this, we need to modify our REST API to actually return pet info instead of just a boolean. Now, if we spot this thing, wait, this is a post. We can just okay, cool. So if we HTTP post to API pets with the ID, we get a boolean as a result. But we could also actually just implement a get to this thing, to the same URL, where we just return the matching pet ID. Now my JavaScript is a bit rusty, but I think we'll manage in the end. So let's first make sure that that thing is in order. And before we do that, let's first commit this stuff. Package source chat. Now parsing the pet ID from the URL. Bam. Okie dokie. So let's modify our server.js to also return or to implement a get. Should be the same. We don't need to do this conditionally. I don't think we need to do this either. And now we just need to map our, what is this thing? Array, constant pets. Where the ID is 1, or the ID is this ID. I already forget. Filter. It accepts up to 3 arguments. Calls a callback function for each element in the function. And my first argument is the callback function. Okie dokie. And it is something that takes in a pet, basically, right? Okay. Pet ID. requested pet ID. What the hell? Yep, and then this should be if it's non-empty, I guess. So whoops. So this is now our array, and I guess what we could do is let our result be equal to if pets with ID is not empty. Let's go with pets with ID. This is bad code, right? And otherwise, what do we return otherwise? Nothing. An empty. How do you return? Maybe. You can go like, I don't know, like add headers to it or something. Header status. Oh. The thing that still confuses me is that there's no return statement here. So maybe it doesn't really need a return statement. So I'm thinking this. Uh, 403, go away. Stuff like that. Okay, let's check if... Crap, how am I gonna check this now? Is it compiling? Oh yeah, God. So I've got this annoying issue that when I start my backend like this, and I shut it down with Control-C from Git Bash, the node process doesn't get killed for some reason. And then when you restart and using npm start, it's all throwing all of these errors. Girl? We have girl. Yeah, we have girl. Localhost pi pets with ID 1. Pets with nothing, but I guess that you need to go like this or something. Well, it's not returning a 403 because it's a 200. Let's do a quick Google search on Express JS how to return 403. So it seems to be that you have to build your response. That's cool. And then JSON is a different closing function or something. Okie dokie. And then do this nasty stuff again. Node tie. So that needs to mean that there's something wrong with checking an empty array. 404. Ah, yeah, indeed. 404 does seem to be more appropriate. Thank you. Thanks, Vincent. Is my Boolean evaluation correct? I'm gonna think no. No, it's not. I'm guessing it's always gonna be there after you filter. So I could do size, length, length. Haha. And then the one you should find. Yes. Excellent. So there's that. Let's commit that stuff. Added get. For to get pet info or supplied pet ID. Okie dokie. Now we can return in. We can return to our front end bit again. Close all of the unnecessary stuff. And then we're gonna have to do this stuff. Right. Where we want to do an HTTP send that gets passed along a result, well, a function that sort of unwraps the HTTP stuff and then gives us back stuff that we want to know, where we also need to give it like something that understands how to parse the JSON. And I forget where that stuff was, of course. Ah, here. I think. No. this is the actual post call. Where is the stuff? Where is it just this thing? What does send take? Boo. No, I really want to just make it bigger, but it's impossible. Yep. I am laughing with what you're saying. I can't hear it, but I can hear it. Trust me. So how does that stuff work? So our send is something that takes in a result with an any type that then also gets the request. So that's the actual post thing, and then perform matchmaking stuff, which also just returns a command with a message. Send a request. We could get the text of War and Peace like this. And here it's just a string. Yeah, of course. So how do you do that for like a proper JSON thing? I haven't done that yet, actually. Can I make it easier? Because what I really want to be doing is just routing stuff. I guess we sort of did that already. No, I want to make it more dynamic and the chat application. Let's stick to the plan. So now we need to figure out how we can parse our return JSON object into an object that Elm understands. And I bet it's just like a combination of stuff. So let's figure it out. It should be fine. Okay. Cool. So let's grab all of this. So we're still working on, oh wait, no, we did this. Here is URL parsing. Here is main, obviously. Subscription stuff. And I think all of this is view. And this is model or update. So let's move that. Maybe, yeah, let's keep it on top. Come. Because it's sort of like the first thing that that happens, right? Now, this should be called fetch pet, where we pass along an integer, the pet ID. Pet ID. Oh yeah, it's gonna take a string. Pet ID This was the perform get or something. Let's call it just perform get. Perform get. Okay, we probably need to do some imports. Excuse me. Yeah, we don't need bool. So we already imported JSON.decode, but we haven't imported HTTP just yet. Let's get this thing correct first. So it should be a get. Great. Ooh. Here. No. I better copy that. I did not. Could also just go to the HTTP documentation. Yeah. So we'll need this in a while. Then we can combine then decoding objects. Okay. But so we need to, and all of this seems to be correct already. And this thing is incorrect. Why was this a Boolean? It's not right. It returns, or it returns a pet actually. What? So now we can just have the one return thing where it's okay with a whatever. We can say initialize pet model with pet. Pet. And whenever, oh, sorry. And whenever we get an error, let's not handle it. Let's go to our messages and then also add something that has maybe a pet. Yep. And then this is a message that we should deal with later over here. And now is being dealt with by doing absolutely nothing. So that we can gradually add behavior or implement stuff. I don't think that HTTP GET takes a JSON as an argument, but it doesn't seem to be complaining though. Yeah, see, it immediately takes a decoder. So and then bool wasn't exposed. So how JSON.decode is already like this. And now Elm's complaining is returning a request bool. So what we need to do now is make a decoder that is going to decode the JSON into a pet. Pet decoder or something, I don't know. Decoder. Ooh, and now we can check. So this is probably wrong, but let's see. Oh, okay, fine. Cricket. Now let's see what this thing says. So what I really need is something of a decoder for A. So what does a decoder look like? Let's see. So now we're into this thing. Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. Right, so yeah, my question exactly, but then you need to oh, this is so cool. Oh snap. Now let's not make this a reading stream. So what I just read is there are a couple of ways to decode JSON objects. So at first it started off pretty easy with decoding a JSON that contains an X value, which is supposed to be an integer. and you can use decode string on or with this decoder, and then the string being this JSON. So what we need to do, we have this get function that needs a decoder. So something that we could do is JSON and then not decoder. I don't think it's just going to be field. Hang on. This is implementation. Field of which I think this is going to be like the actual JSON string or something. JSON string. So that's the second argument, and or the second. So another first argument would be what field do I want to try to extract out of it. So let's say from our server.js, we want to extract the name, for example. Then we would choose the name field, which is a string. And then we would have just the beginnings of a pet, because would be pet name equals this thing, and then we can call our pet constructor, which is in here, that takes in an ID, a name, a distance, and then let's go like, yeah. I guess it's more clear this way, huh? Where name would be pet name. No? It was given 3. Then I don't understand what this thing is. This needs to be an anonymous function where we have this and then return that stuff. Nope. Still bad. So in any case, we're gonna have to make something like this, right? So a decoder for a pet. And then this is wrong. Hmm. The thing is, I don't know what the JSON decoder looks like. Maybe let's just look it up. Or go straight into this thing. Value. Yeah, if you want a straight value, then but then this should work. Yeah, but then it's JSON.decode. That was we'll need to get rid of this stuff. So go like this. Fix stuff. What's that? F8? Yeah. Maybe like get rid of this stuff for now. JSON.decode, not decoder, bat decode. And then or is it just value? Huh. Right. And then this is JSON.decode.map. Now on to the next error. And then this is not a thing because it's not Now I'm just guessing, really, so. I think that part is still a bit confusing for me, like how the import stuff works, or where to know how to find it. Well, thanks for helping out anyway, man. What I think we want to do is do this sort of thing. Oh man, this looks so neat. This looks so simple. Now, I feel like I want to use this, but it's in the no-red ink on decode pipeline. Oh. So let's add it to this, of which I have no idea what the version looks like. So it's just basically 300. Wait, no. So I want to get triggered whenever they push a minor update, basically. Oh, succeed as a function. Yeah, okay. Now what? Ah, yeah, whoops. So since I added that stuff, I wanna install that package. Upgrade. Ah, okay. Ah, it is a what? Wait, what? Yeah, I guess then. I hope the URL parser. Let me check where the URL parser is at then. So this is 201, and its package JSON depends on navigation being okay less than 3. Which should be fine. So now when I save this file again, it should work. What? Oh, copy link location. So Thanks to Vincent in the chat for supplying me with this thing. Yeah, ignore the JSON and produce a standard value. You can also okay. Derp. And here is the value. Do not do anything with the JSON value. Just bring it into L as a value. That is fancy decoding. I could have done this actually, yeah. Because my model, pet that is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fields long. Maybe let's do that first. And then not deal with this stuff just yet. Ooh, maybe that's something I shouldn't have changed then. Or update. Oh, it's just install. Yeah. 201. 21. 210. 210. But see, now I expected this to be like this, right? All right. So first, let's try our pet decoder to solve it using map. I forget already how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So map 5. Map 5. Let's not forget map 5. And then in that documentation bit over here, what we could do is go like this. And then put this in comment. Call map 5 on json.decoder.rdecode. Map 5. Yeah, import json.decode. Map 5 where we want to create a pet with field ID, which is an int, with field name, which is a string, and then I hope we'll figure that out later. Then, so now we're creating a constructor for a pet, okay? I forget, distance, integer, and then text string. So it's an integer for distance, and then 2 string fields for text and photo URL. Wait, I've always wondered if this works. So I've got multi-cursors on those 2 things. And now I want to go like this. Oh, it does. That's so neat. Yeah, and then we only need to make an actual reference to field. I accidentally added another. All right. And then these string things should also be these. And now it's broken. ¿Por qué? It was using the UrlParser's int function. All right. Thinking. Yeah. Ooh, and now we can. So it is. So I had a signature right from the first time. Yeah. I guess that's because map 5 returns a decoder for a pet. Yeah, indeed. All right. Oh, I am excited. Because our code is compiling, we have initialize model with pet. Which we haven't. Well, we've got the message, but it doesn't do anything yet. There is a way to debug stuff though. So let's check this out. So I want to initialize model with pet with the pet. And then really what I want to return is just this for now, because I don't really care. But what I want to do is I need to import debug. And then I think it's like this. You do log, which takes a string, which you then also add this as an argument, but it's already between braces, so it should be fine. And then we could our parse pet is so now we do need braces. I'm unsure if this will work. Thinking. Yeah. There's no toString to pet, I guess. Or there is. And this is just working because I don't need to import debug anymore, or it's already been imported. Let's find out. Oh yeah. Maybe let's start our reactor. I'm actually unsure where the debug log is gonna log. I've used it before, the debug log statement in unit tests, where you just get the output. Now I am, maybe it's because it's the, well, no dice. Well, screw it. Then let's just update our model. With what's it, initial pet or something, just pet equals pet, I think. Fetched pet. No, it's still returning cricket. Why? We must have missed something from over here. Probably like something like do silly stuff when match was made or something. Nope. Subscriptions is nothing either. So yeah, I was thinking maybe we forgot something like to deal with asynchronous behavior, but nope. Asynchronous. Um, so let's go. Let's follow this flow a little bit. Okay. So we load our browser. We have verified that it can parse this number because we updated our model to capture that parsed pet ID. And we do that within the URL changed handler. Well, sorry, not this one, but in parse URL. My bad. So in parse URL, what do? We say, well, it's a function that takes a location and then updates the model with that location. Update location takes in the initial model. Okay, hang on. Updates the initial model with the location. So that's this thing. There we parse the ID. We update the model with that pet ID that we just fetched. Then this is the parsing where we default to 999 for some silly reason. So then we've got that thing going. Get pet ID from location. And here we do all of this stuff. Yeah. So I've got the feeling that we're not firing the HTTP send just yet, and that's going to be the issue. So that's all of that we're doing. We're just updating our pet ID. And then we get into our program basically, where we pass it along to the view, and then nothing changes. So there's nothing that actually triggers the sending of what higher that actually does this perform get. This we should probably also rename because it's definitely not evaluate matchmaking response. So this is update model with fetched pet. Yep. So this is the thing that we're not doing yet. Now, where do we put this stuff? Because it puts out a command with a message, huh? It puts out a command with a message. The last bit. So what I could do is do fetch pet with the get pet ID from location with the location, and then we just pass along our initial model, which can just be empty. So now we don't need this stuff anymore. And then we also don't really need to update our pet ID anymore either. So let's get rid of it. All right, and we want to pipe the result of this thing to fetchpad. That makes sense. Oh yeah. Where is, oh yeah, we don't need this. Yeah. Exciting. Oh! You do get princess, but the URL isn't parsed correctly. And we are getting results as well. Why is that? Is it being escaped or something silly? So let's check what our pet has. Photo URL. Ah, yeah. So photo URL doesn't get prefixed with the on the server side, I mean. So if you go to server.js, here the photo URL just contains a relative path, but in our pets.elm application, our photo URL or the default pets always point to a HTTP localhost / blah blah blah. So we need to append the base URL. So where do we want to do that? Do you want to do that in our, let's do it in our decoder. Let's format this a little bit better. Like that. So decoding this is going to return a string. Shit. Oh man, my head hurts. Why is that? Because I think that this map5 is expecting functions to Oh, yeah, right. So map5 is gonna call this constructor eventually with the result of all of these in order. And that's why that will work. So let's think. Maybe it's too difficult to do that. The other thing I could do is write my own constructor function that is going to create a pet for me and is going to append the thing to photo URL, but then I don't like it. I kind of just want to change the output of my backend for now to just have it conform to this. Am I cheating by doing that? Do I really care if I am? I don't think so. Okay. Hey. And let's kill this thing again. And then actually kill node. And then restart this. Then restart Elm Reactor. And then refresh our page. Great success. So then if we would go to 2, nothing updates because we are not registering anything to changes to our URL, remember? But if we do a manual refresh, it does seem to work. Let's maybe get a dog or something. Here's Bert. You should reply with woof. Dog. This is great. So now let's try and fix that last bit. Do we want to commit? No, let's just fix that last bit. That last bit being our URL changed handler. So whenever this thing changes, so what I just did is just modify the URL, and this then should get triggered, I'm thinking. What do I want to do? I want to have something that outputs a message. So maybe like URL changed with location. Oh. I think I can just do this then. Oh snap. What's going on? Oh, okay. So again, this is a constructor function. So I can just say is equal to that. And then have a URL changed message type message that takes a location, and then that should be fine. Yep. So then we can inline this. There we go. And then deal with URL. Oh man, nav not location. And then deal with URL changed with the location. And what we want to do is do this parsing stuff again. Parse URL. Let's pass in a model as well. And here we pass along an initial model. Does it work like that? Whoops. Oh yeah. Arrow. No. Parse URL. With model, we've got that up here. And location. Nice. See if it still works. Bird. Need a man. Changing. Oh, what? Dude, this is so amazing. Elm is the shit, man. I mean, how easy was this? Dear God. All right. I think we're gonna commit. What did we change on package? Oh, we added all of. Oh, now we don't need the Elm decode pipeline anymore. Am I gonna remember that we're gonna try and? Yeah, let's keep it in there. Let's just keep it in there. Then I want to add Elm package. I also want to add source chat. Ooh, I also actually want to add the backend server, but then I want to do that first. Damn it. All right. So first add backend server. And commit that as I'm lazy. So added base URL in profile. There we go. Then we can basically add everything and say commit chat is now URL aware. Holy crap. Okay, I am very happy with the result of tonight. So maybe let's do a quick rundown of what, let's indeed maybe do a quick rundown of what we did. So, right, we started off by wanting to make the chat application URL aware, basically. We first did that by parsing the pet ID from the URL and just putting it in our model. Then we started building a to-do list because we wanted to also actually get pet information from our backend server. Then we modified our server.js for that end, or to that end. And then we struggled just a little bit with like the order in which we wanted to get the decoding stuff, right? So we read some documentation, and then finally we applied all of that stuff using parse URL, where we basically fetch the ID from the URL bar using our navigation or URL parser, excuse me. And then what we did was actually use that parse URL as well to trigger whenever our URL changes using this thing. Man. And then just do that. Dude, Elm is so cool. I hope you agree with me. And if not, well, that's fine too. Cool. So what are we gonna do next week? Next week, we're gonna try and modify the location in the browser when we click on this button, because this button should direct us to the pet or to the chat application, so basically the chat page, with that ID that we already have in our model over here. So that's going to be a little bit more difficult, I'm afraid, because at this point we don't really have a single page application just yet. We just have two separate single page applications that only have one page. Right, and we're gonna have to try and merge both home and chat together in one generic layout, and then actually do routing. So what we've done today was just like a setup into the URL parsing mechanic, which we're gonna need once we want to do actual routing. Okay, cool. Nice. See you guys next time. As usual, I appreciate feedback. Leave it in the chat. Send me a tweet. Whatever. Oh, but by the way, I am going to be hanging out on the Socrates Belgium Unconference that's starting this Thursday evening. I'm unsure if there are places available For now, let's just find out. Socrates, Belgium. It's this thing. Get your ticket. So try and go there. It's gonna be my first time there. So if you're also going there, please be gentle. But it's basically a conference where we build the agenda ourselves as developers or software craftsmen and testers. And I am going to be doing a session on how to pair with non supportive pairs, I guess, or non-supportive people. So I'm gonna try and role play a developer that is gonna be your pair if you choose to do this exercise with me, because it's like a cooperative thing. But it allows you to figure out how to deal with people that are difficult to deal with, or like at some points people just want to grab the keyboard and then start typing and stop being cooperative when pairing. So I'm gonna try and be that kind of pair and allow you to deal with that yourself. So I hope it's gonna be something cool. Vincent says that Socrates is gonna be sold out. So maybe see you next year. I'm sorry. So anyway, I'm really excited about going there. I'll let you know next week, I guess. Yeah. So see you guys next week and thanks for tuning in. All right. Bye.